Monica, there is so much in the papers.
Yes,
Let me just
bring
you up to speed this morning. Let's just look, and this will make your blood boil and curdle this morning as it did with mine. My jaw dropped open, actually, when I read this headline. This is the front page of the Sunday Telegraph. Wait for this. We talk a lot about illegal migration on this programme. The Prime Minister, here's his brilliant new idea. He's going to ease the rules for illegal migrants. What? Yes, let me just tell you about this. Labour is watering down border laws designed to block illegal migrants from attaining citizenship, and also is going to stop them, forcing them to submit to scientific age checks. So they're repealing rules that were introduced by the Tories that meant that small boat arrivals could never become citizens. If you remember, this was under the illegal migration bill. So what that bill said, and I will remind you, if you came here on a small boat, you cannot claim asylum. That is the linchpin of that bill. You will be detained for 28 days and removed. Any future asylum claim is invalid. You have a lifetime ban. So Labour is going to revoke that legislation, and it is also going to revoke legislation which gave ministers the power to treat asylum seekers who refuse to undergo scientific age checks as adults. Chris Philp, the shadow Home Secretary, says the move is a total capitulation to people smugglers and will make the UK the soft touch of Europe. Is he right?
Oh, absolutely. That's the scariest thing, actually, Dave, what you said about the, it said, Mr Phillips said it will lead to a dangerous young men being placed with teenage girls and makes the UK the soft touch of Europe.
Yeah.
And that, I think, said it's all, and in the this was I didn't know this statistic. In the first half of last year, more than 1,300 illegal immigrants were caught pretending to be minors after their cases were flagged by officials.
And so the real worry here is that it is important to differentiate between adults and children, and therefore I think it is only right that they undergo some sort of testing,
yes,
where you differentiate and say, are you an adult or are you a child? This is done across Europe in multiple countries, including France and Germany, and you can do that various ways. You can do an X-ray, you can do an MRI. Why would the government want to stop the mandatory use of that?
Exactly. Why indeed? That's got to be the question, isn't it? How has he come to this decision? And how does he think this is going to help, what's happening with the migrant situation in this country? Other countries are really clamping down on the immigration, and we're not. We seem to be just completely doing a complete opposite.
Well, I would agree. And also, what I find fascinating about Keir Starmer is that he, and we spoke about this yesterday, he just seems to have no sense of what the vast majority of the British public are thinking.
And what's actually happening. I don't think is he realising what's actually happening at the moment? How many immigrants are arriving, and how people are so worried about it. There's always going to be a cause for people who are genuinely wanting to come to this country, of course, but we have to put procedures in place so that we can identify which ones are illegal and which ones are legal. And
if you remember, these powers to force people to have these checks were introduced in 2022 through the Nationality and Borders Act. So what is happening essentially is the people smugglers are saying to adults when they get here, say you're a child, that way you will be treated differently to being an adult. And of course, if we then don't ensure that they undergo rigorous testing that they are an adult or a child, then they slip through the net. Exactly, and that is such a worry. I mean, has he not thought about that? Clearly not. Has he not thought, this is going to happen? Because, if somebody comes over, most of them don't have any kind of identification at all. So, I mean, it must be a terrible job for anybody that's trying to gather information about them when you've got no information about them at all. And how do you determine an age? Some people look really young, some people look older. So and of course they've chucked the passport in the sea anyway, so you've no idea. It's really scary, and I think it opens another gateway for them just to think, hey, this is an easy touch, let's come to England. I mean, it's interesting. I will side with the Tories at this point because they did try very hard. Whether they actually succeeded or not remains to be seen. But the illegal migration bill, I thought, was a massive step forward. We then had the Rwanda bill that went through, and of course the first policy that Keir Starmer repeals was Rwanda. I do not understand that. No. To this day, I still don't understand that, because surely you need to get it through to see whether it is is a deterrent.
And let's just see if it works.
Exactly.
And we spent so much money on it, David. How much money did that cost us, the taxpayers? It was millions of pounds. So at least, why did he just say, oh no, it was almost he saw, oh, it's Conservative, so I'm not going to do it. I mean, what other reason? Because if he'd at least tried it, give it 6 months or a year, try it. But he didn't even do that. He just stopped it straight away.
And there's another story this morning about Reform UK, which shows that it's ascendancy in the polls. I'll show you those polls a little later on this morning. Rupert Lowe has been very vociferous in the House of Commons. He's the MP for Great Yarmouth, and he said our asylum system is already as soft as a boiled maggot. And he's right. Zero tolerance is required. And he goes further, and I think he literally puts his finger on it. He says it's abundantly clear that thousands of men, are fooling the incompetent Home Office. They lie about their age, they lie about their sexuality and say that they're actually being persecuted, they lie about their religion, they lie about all sorts of things. And then what the Home Office is doing, and there's the poll that I'll show you, but what the Home Office is doing, the word of the migrant is taken as the truth. Why would you trust someone who has come here illegally when there are safe and legal routes into the United Kingdom?
Exactly. And, you know, we discussed this before. I always say, you know, if you're a legal immigrant, it's somebody who's absolutely just wanting to flee, whatever it is that's happening in the country.
That if you are being persecuted.
You would go through the proper channels, you know, but why would you spend thousands of pounds, what is it, about the average of £5,000 they pay to go across on a boat that is, they know that could cause them to die because they may or may not make it. So what does that tell you about that person? That tells you that, yes, they're fleeing something, but are they actually, or are they just trying to get into our country?
I honestly, my response, and I mean, you know, obviously I'm used to reading headlines, but this morning when I read this headline, Prime Minister eases rules for illegal migrants, I imagine that most people around this country will have the same response I had, which was, you have to be kidding. So just going back to Keir Starmer, it is extraordinary. His poll ratings are in the toilet. This government is deeply unpopular, even with people like James Mathewson, who was on yesterday, who really can't defend the current government because it is indefensible what they're doing. You're seeing the rise of other parties. Interestingly, not the Conservatives, but rise of parties like Reform UK on the back of it. What do you think is going on with the British public and their psyche?
I think Starmer's completely lost touch with his people. I think he needs to remember that he's our Prime Minister, and we voted, people voted for him, David. You know, people voted for him to be there, so he should be listening to his people, and he doesn't seem to be listening at all. Even if he doesn't agree all the time, he should listen to what his people have got to say and act accordingly. But he doesn't.
No, and I just want to bring you onto the Sunday Times because this links rather beautifully into that. This is basically a book, according to a new book that's come out. Labour despaired over, and this is the quote, HR boss Starmer. Keir Starmer's chief aide complained that Starmer behaves like an HR manager and not a leader. The Deputy Prime Minister, this is Angela Rayner, joked that Keir Starmer is so inept he could not run a bath. It's eviscerating.
I mean, and also...
it's true.
Yes, and also they said Starmer hired an acting coach to help overcome his aversion to addressing crowds and his wooden style. And he's got this... I don't know, every time he speaks you think, is there anything in there? You're waiting for him to come a bit more personable, but he's just not.
No, normally I think, what's in the fridge, what am I having for supper?
I would sack the acting coach because they're clearly having a good job, because nothing's changed about him at all. And, you know, I just think it's, again, it says it all, really. I think people, and I know that some people that I know voted for him, and even they're now saying, you know, they don't understand what he's doing. He isn't listening to what's happening to our country, and he isn't seeing what's happening to our country. So what is he doing? What is he doing?
Can we just see that poll again? Because I think this is fascinating. When you look at where we are, we're very much in the infancy of the government. When you have people like Angela Rayner, and this is all coming out in this book, she says she doesn't know who runs Labour, but it's certainly not the elected leader. Now, looking at that, Labour, if you remember under Tony Blair, this is their honeymoon period. This is when they're going to be at their most popular. And they are behind Reform UK. This is the Find Out Now poll at 23. Reform UK at 27. So if if I was the Deputy Prime Minister, if I was Morgan McSweeney, if I was someone in the Labour Party, I would be very worried by that.
I would. And again, are they even looking at it? Are they look? It's almost as like he's just sort of, I'll just do what I like, and I'm not listening to anyone. But surely the people around him, David, are telling him what's going on. But again, he's not doesn't seem to be taking any action whatsoever. And every day we have headline stories, front page stories about what he's doing and how much damage he's causing to the country. Where's the good story about him? There isn't a good story, you know. So surely, if I was him, I'd be thinking, right, OK, come on, we've got to get a good story out here.
Well, let's just go back to what Chris Philp said. He said this is a total capitulation to people smugglers. It would make the UK the soft touch of Europe. It will lead to dangerous young men being placed with teenage girls, makes the UK the soft touch of Europe. Starmer is weak on borders. He's weak when it comes to protecting our borders, our children and our people. Let me just open that question up to you. And it got us thinking here at talkTV Towers this morning about Keir Starmer and about Chris Philp's comment. Do you now agree that the UK is the soft touch of Europe? The reason I ask that is you've got people like Maloney, who is trying desperately to sort out their migration problems. I think across Europe you're seeing countries who are drawing up the borders, even in the Schengen area, trying to work out what to do with the migration crisis. And yet here we are, Keir Starmer easing the rules for illegal migrants. So if you pop it over on a boat illegally, you will be able to claim asylum, which under the illegal migration bill wouldn't have been possible. So do you agree with Chris Philp that the UK is the soft touch of Europe?